Hey there guys, it's Joey. I just thought I would show you these little findings that I've picked up when I was wild harvesting the other day, just while I talk to you. This video is going to be a follow-up from the Celtic Path video, because there were two very, I think, important points that came up as a result of it, and I want to address those. And I'm not on the web camera for a number of reasons. One, I'm very frazzled, and two, the drilling is going to start any second because they've already started hammering. So we're in here because it's quieter, so bear with me, and I'm sorry I'm not on camera, but until they finish that I'm going to have problems getting on the web camera, which is a bit of a problem. So until then I'll just try and find interesting things for you to look at, and you'll just have to listen to me, I'm afraid. I do have a couple of things that I'm going to use to illuminate my points here, so this kind of helps with that as well. So basically the first thing was about working in the abstract and seeing the divine in different ways, and it all being reflections or refractions of the same force of being, let's call it source or spirit, which is so far beyond our understanding that we sort of find ways to connect with it, find archetypes to connect with it, find faces of goddesses to help us connect with that broader, more abstract theory and idea of godhood, which is basically the whole idea of there are many, many paths to walk, but we're all hopefully walking in the same way by trying to discover who we are, where we're going, and what God, Goddess, Spirit, Source means to us. And I'm very much a supporter of that idea. That is at the base of my ideas, and I realise that with being so impassioned with my matron goddess and the aspects of her that come through, it might have got a little bit lost in that video. And anybody who works in the abstract I completely understand and support that. I did that for however many years it was. I've only been working with the Morrigan for 2 or 3 years in a very specific sense, and before then I was perfectly happy to work with God and Goddess in a very abstract way, just calling them God and Goddess literally and connecting to those energies without being specific. My path then evolved or changed to the point where I felt I needed a more personal relationship with the divine, and that for the human experience is easier and more comprehensible to do through a specific pantheon, a specific God and Goddess. It doesn't have to be a specific pantheon, and there are people who I know and highly respect that work with a God and a Goddess from a different pantheon, and they can do that because they connect to the idea that all pantheons have a common thread going through them in some way. Now, I think for my purpose, it's easier for me to connect through the Celtic Path because that's just how I walk. I don't think I couldn't connect through different energies, and through my crafting I can see and perceive and connect to different energies that I had never considered openly. For example, I've just done the turtle totem animal, and I thought I'd have issues with that, having never worked with it, but I didn't. I just connected to it. It flowed. It all comes from the same sort of place. Now, for my purposes, it is easier to connect to the Morrigan and all aspects of divinity through her. And these gods and goddesses are no less real for being different facets of a larger ideal. They are still the God and Goddess that you are connecting with. It's just a matter of perception and reality, and having a human experience and having a human perception on something which human beings cannot fully comprehend or understand, and is so abstract and is so difficult that we find easier ways of accomplishing this. Now, I've got these two stones to try and help me explain this more fully. Now, these were sent to me by a very dear friend, and her community name is Mintaji. I hope I'm saying that right. Now, this is on my goddess altar, my seasonal altar, which is a generalized altar. And I have two for this exact reason. The generalized altar is generally to do with the seasons, to do with celebrating the Sabbats, and sometimes the Esbats, depending on my mood. I do have a smaller one now for Esbats, and that is just to show that I still do work within the realms. I still do understand the generalization process, the fact that you don't have to work with a specific god and goddess. I hope this is going to make sense, because this is difficult for me to explain, never mind for some people to get their heads around. I understand it's a very abstracty concept, which is why it's easier to work with a specific god and goddess. So this is on my god's side, on the candle holders, sorry. This is an ametrine, and this is on the goddess side, it's an amethyst. Now, depending on where you're from, because I keep getting comments about this, they have different names. To me, whenever I've seen them, and whenever anybody in England has sold them, and whenever I have been sent them as a gift, which these were referred to as dragon eggs. It's interesting how the light has suddenly started boom. Right, and in other places they are known as seer stones, and I've heard them called other things, but regardless, I think it makes a point very well. No matter what you call them, same concept, same idea. Tie that into what we've just said about God and godhood and goddesshood. Right, so the reason I have these right here is because these, and I have 4 now of a different stone on my spirit candle as well. These are exactly a manifestation, a physical representation of how I best can explain the abstract nature of goddess. The singular goddess being a reflection of a whole. So, it's hopefully, I might have to get the little ones out because these are a little bit difficult to get to work, but yeah, we're going to have problems with the light. How about if... yeah, okay. Can you see the light moving through there? The reflections and the refractions and refractions and and you see the light glowing through the bottom there, and you can start to see something else. Let's try the ametrine. Ametrine I use for the god because the citrine in it has the masculinity aspect. And look at that. It's more masculine in shape, and it's amethyst as well, so it's still spirit, my spirit crystal. If you were wondering why I use ametrine for him, there you go. Right. It's a bit difficult with the light. Now, I use these, and I have said this before, and we will explain it a little bit more here, as a representation of God, goddess, and spirit. There are these 2 for God and goddess, and there are currently 4, because that's all I can find at the minute. There's currently smoky quartz, amethyst, rose quartz, and clear quartz on my spirit candle, in the spirit corner. And these are there for the very specific reason that they represent a physical manifestation how I feel about divinity, and that is that you look at them like this, right, and this part is very hidden, you know, and this part is very clear and you can see into it. However, you can only see through this limited bit here, and when you move move it around, you will see different hints of light, different reflections, different sparkles, different little bits of energy flowing through. And as you move it around, you see different slight variations of things. You see different images, you have a different way of looking at things. You're looking down at the God crystal now, and it's almost like you can see a blooming shape in it. It's interesting like that. So if we zoom in, if you can see that a bit more. Okay. It's interesting. So that is basically a very simplistic way of how I see divinity, and that is to understand that I don't fully understand the entire thing. If I don't and cannot fully comprehend, fully get my mind around something which is that abstract, that huge, that complex. I am a human being, and I need to simplify things such as this to fully understand it. And it's like these crystals. We get a glimpse of something beautiful, but there is more to it than that. So that's the first thing. I hope I've explained that sufficiently. I realise it's a bit of an abstract concept. This doesn't make the Morrigan any less real to me. She is more real than any other goddess I've ever tried to engage with. I've tried to engage with one or two before. It never happened. It never worked. And this is my path. The Celtic way and the Celtic way of witchcraft makes a lot more sense to me than any other. It's just where my soul resonates with and toward, and that is just how I'm going to walk this path and purely honour it that way. I'm not going to engage with other paths where I'm walking that, because that would confuse the issue. I'm not going to engage with other gods and goddesses, because that's not how my soul connects. I prefer to honour my goddess in her form and the gods and goddesses through her that are connected to her, and not of the pantheons, because I don't feel I would do it justice. I want my path to be strong. I want the threads to tie together and create a strong path for me to follow, and not be here, there and everywhere, and not fully investigating the mythos, the symbolism, the imagery, the meanings that I can fully pursue. It's like a bit like taking on too many subjects. You can't really specialise unless you focus on one. So I hope that makes a measure of sense. And then the other thing, the Four Queens mentioned this, and I thought about it afterwards, and I wondered if it might have hinted at it in my video, that sometimes people who follow very specific paths get quite possessive and quite jealous and quite aggressive with their god and goddess, their pantheon. Like if they don't want other people to follow it and they try and put people off. Now, I hope at no point I have done that. I do understand why people sort of try to push maybe very new beginners away from goddesses such as the Morrigan and gods in that same sort of vein, because of the seriousness of the devotion that I believe is necessary for a god or a goddess of this ilk. Because there's something deeper, there's something serious, there's a lot of time, effort, energy involved. The Morrigan is not a goddess I would ever want to dishonour. One, because she's so deeply ingrained within my heart that I would never want to dishonour someone I love as much as her. And because I don't think she would be tolerant of it. I think that this facet of spirituality is so tied up in the idea of honourable living, honourable combat, of fighting your own battles, of not giving in to fear, of not higgledy-piggledy, wishy-washy picking up and dropping of this goddess, of this path. I would never suggest that dabblers pick up a goddess such as this. because of the serious undertone of it. However, something that winds me up, and I mentioned this in the other video, is people that use the Morrigan or goddesses like her to make out that they are dark, negative, scary, dangerous, and try and frighten people. We don't need to be frightening people any more than there is a measure of unwarranted fear around the subject anyway. What I honestly believe in this case is that if you believe in a negative thing, then you will manifest negativity. Like, if you believe wholeheartedly that something is frightening, then what you're going to manifest is going to be a reflection of what you believe, because you are putting that energy into that thought. Because whether you like it or not, you believing that thought, you believe that something is negative, and you're going to manifest something negative. You might be affronting the goddess in such a way that she manifests as negative because you have A, manifested that energy yourself, and B, you've affronted her. And I really can't stand this whole I'm suddenly all powerful because I follow a dark goddess. Now, I don't agree with the terminology dark goddess. I don't agree with all the symbolism of her being bloodthirsty and angry and nasty and all this, not because it presents her in a very negative light. And this happens with a lot of goddesses which deal with the balance of, and goddesses which basically are about female empowerment. And through female empowerment, then balance, because it's not about females being overpowering to males, because the Morrigan has masculine aspects, which I am learning about even now. She is male and female within the energy herself, as all aspects come back to that one idea that I talked about earlier. You know, god and goddess isn't male or female, it's both. There is no other way of it being, as far as I'm concerned. We cannot have masculine and feminine in everything in nature and everything on earth. In every human perception, there is male and female in everybody, and it not to be the same within the spiritual realm, the realm of divinity and source. Because as above, so below, as far as I'm concerned. As above in spirit, in the realm of the, I don't know, the realm of the metaphysical, maybe, of source, so below on earth, in nature, in us. So yeah, I hope I've covered that idea specifically. It doesn't make you any more dangerous to follow a certain type of god or goddess, as far as I'm concerned, and that's just ego. That's just, you're trying to feed your own ego by making out, oh, I've heard it before. I've heard people, oh, I follow the Morrigan, you F with me, you're gonna get it. And I think it's incredibly disrespectful to her and to followers of the path, because it just presents us in a really awful negative light. So I wanted to cover those 2 points. So I hope that makes a measure of sense. I hope I made enough sense. I hope so. Many blessings.